Okay, wonderful. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Um, I, my name is Tracy Ricciardi Toe. Thank you so much for joining us for the Creating Community After College webinar. We appreciate everyone who has joined us this evening. This event is intended to help you continue building skills and knowledge to navigate life after BU with confidence and is sponsored by the BU Young Alumni Council. The BUYAC exists to strengthen your engagement by fostering a vibrant global community of young alumni who maintain an ever-evolving and lifelong relationship with Boston University and each other. This program is one of the many opportunities BU provides to inform and enrich your alumni experience, and we hope you enjoy today's presentation. Before diving in, I have a few housekeeping notes to share. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni and Friends website found at www.bu.edu/alumni. You will receive an email with a link once it is live on the website. We encourage you to submit any questions you have for our presenter this evening using the Q&A function on the bottom toolbar so they do not get lost in the chat. Today's webinar is meant to be interactive, and participants are encouraged to respond to Sarah's prompts and connect with one another using the chat function. While I introduce tonight's presenter, I encourage everyone to post in the chat where you are joining from today. Today's speaker, Sarah Greisdorf, a community builder, founder, and strategist passionate about creating spaces where people feel seen, supported, and empowered, excuse me. Sarah graduated from CAS in 2020, majoring in computer science and minoring in innovation and entrepreneurship. She currently leads the Channel Partner Program at Squarespace, where she works at the intersection of product, partnerships, and community, designing programs that help professional web designers thrive. Before joining Squarespace, Sarah founded Holdette, a community focused on helping recent grad women show up and confidently in work and life. What started as a fashion startup during her time at BU evolved into a vibrant network of events, dinners, and conversations designed to connect ambitious women navigating early career life. Sarah was named to Bostino's 25 Under 25 list, has spoken at CMX Summit, On 24X, and Startup Week Boston. She lives in Brooklyn, where she's always looking for ways to bring people together. Sarah, please take it away.
Thanks so much, Tracy. I'm seeing someone said maybe in the Q&A that the chat was disabled, so maybe we can look into that. But I have a couple of prompts, so we can always work on them
I will
ourselves.
take care of that. I'm so
Okay,
sorry.
amazing. No worries at all. Cool. Well, thank you so much to everyone who has joined us this evening. Super excited to dive into this content. Yeah, I think we're gonna have a really great hour together. As Tracy said, my name is Sarah. I graduated from BU, College of Arts and Sciences in 2020. Crazy year to graduate. And majored in computer science with a minor in innovation and entrepreneurship. Since then, I have been working at Squarespace, running our community team, helping designers run their own agencies. And then alongside that, I've been running Holdette, which helps women bridge the gap between college and adulthood through monthly gatherings in people's apartments across the country. Regardless of how you identify, I'm hoping this presentation is really, really helpful to you. But Holdette is really how I have, I think, like grown that expertise and also passion for helping people connect with one another after college. We have had more than 1,200 women go through our program in the last 4 years. And so hope that some of that knowledge, which I've distilled down into this, will be really helpful for you. Now that you know a little bit more about me, would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. Would love if you wanted to share your name, your college, and when you graduated, just so we know who's with us in the chat, and so I can kind of think about where you are in your journey as I go through the presentation. So you want to go ahead and type that now. That would be great. And all right. Oh, Kevin, hi. I know Kevin. And 19, Carolina graduated from Questrom in 2013. That's awesome. Nikki from 2018, Julia from 2013. Okay, awesome. Alexis from 2021, 2023. Okay, so we have like a wide range, which is amazing. I think What is hopefully super helpful about this content is it will be applicable whether you are graduating right now or whether you, like Sage, who's graduating in 2 weeks, congrats, or whether you graduated in 2013. I think what I'm sharing will be hopefully broadly applicable. So I want to start by just breaking down kind of like what we're going to cover, what you signed up for, what we're all here to discuss. So, creating community after college, what does that mean? How have I kind of interpreted that for this presentation? So, creating, I think that can be finding community, that can be joining a community that already exists, that could be building a community. We're going to kind of explore the different ways that you might find people in your network, and how you can build relationships with them. Community. That could be the people you surround yourself with. Maybe when you were in college, when you were at BU, that looked like, people in your major or people who you were in clubs with. But today, that could be people who were once acquaintances that have become friends. That could be friends that you've had. That could be close friends. That could be family, regardless of where you find yourself. And so there's a lot of different ways that community can look like, kind of different than the way that it did in college when it was like all people that were like 18 to 22 years old directly around you. And then after college, I, kind of said this earlier, but that might be you're graduating right now. That could also be you graduated 10 years ago and you're like navigating whatever season of adulthood you find yourself in. I'll also just pause to say here, I have a couple activities, just like for you to work on, sprinkled throughout this presentation. So if you want to make sure that you have your notes app either on your laptop or on your phone, or you have a notebook or pencil nearby to think about some of those things, now would be a great moment to grab that. So yeah, hoping that this presentation kind of enriches your understanding of what it can look like to find community, enriches your understanding of what that community might look like, and helps you find a stronger community around you. So, where did you find your community in college? Maybe that was your major or your minor. Maybe that was in clubs that you were in. Maybe it was just your dorm, people who lived right around you. Maybe you had a friend and they introduced you to other friends. Would love to know in the chat where, when you were in college, where you found most of your friends. For me, it was my major. Like I said, I studied computer science, also my clubs that I was in, and then yeah, through a lot of friends. But would love if you wanted to share in the chat where were some of those like main places that you were finding friends when you were in college. Just gonna pull up the chat. Student newspaper, dorm, study abroad, classes and clubs. Study abroad's a good one. Um, cool. Yeah, seems like we found found some friends in similar places. Um, love it. Cool. Okay, so I think creating friendships in college was a little bit easier, not necessarily for everyone, but kind of had some advantages that are a little bit different when you graduate, right? So when you're in college, you have proximity. We're a long Commonwealth. Everyone is right there, unless you study abroad, but then you have everyone wherever you are studying abroad. And just being around people makes it easier to spend more time together. You have breakfast, lunch, or dinner together. You have your classes, you have the clubs that are meeting every single week. And so it's really easy to connect with people. That goes away a little bit when you graduate, especially if you move to a new city or if your friends move away, or, you know, wherever you find yourself, you're not having the exact same, a level of interactions and contact with people that would allow you to make friends easily. I heard a stat once that was like it takes like 30 hours to become a good friend with someone. And when you're in college, you could easily knock out 30 hours in a week if you were spending all your time together. When you're, graduate, a lot harder to rack up those hours. You also have common interests with the people around you. You were all studying the same thing. You were, at a minimum, all attending the same school. And so you had some level of interests in common, if you were able to, find some of your people. There were a lot of entry points. Every semester, you were in new classes, whether you studied abroad, that was a whole new group. Every time, there was like the club there and people joined, that was like a new way for people to connect and find each other. And also, ultimately, you were in the same life stage. So, everyone around you was like basically the exact same age. And when you graduate, that is not necessarily the case. And I think, this slide is basically meant to communicate like, you had a lot going for you for making friends in college. And I don't think something that I realized when I graduated was like how much I was relying on each of these four things to support the friendships that I had. Like a lot of my friendships, you graduate, I graduated during the pandemic, was sent home. Like I didn't realize like, wow, I had a lot of people in my life who I connected to probably just because we were hanging out, all the time together. Proximity, we were in similar places. Not that they weren't, strong and meaningful friendships on their own, but they were really like leaning on the crutch of proximity. Um, and so as we kind of think about graduating and then moving on and then wherever you find yourself now, how do we kind of like build these meaningful friendships when we don't have these like kind of easier ways to get into them? And so that kind of brings us to our first big section here is like, how do we create friendships that like feel good to us and like have a lot in common when we're not surrounded by people that we have only common interests with, or surrounded by people who are all our exact same age. And I think one good way to figure that out is like, what are your values? What's important to you? Before we think about how I go out and find other people, we're going to start by thinking about like, what are the values that are important to us, individually. And so the first activity that we're going to do is thinking about what those values are. Maybe it's loyalty, maybe it's integrity, adventure, ambition, whatever it may be, in your heart, hopefully, or we're going to spend the next 3 minutes figuring out what your values are. And so, a couple question prompts. We're going to spend 3 minutes doing this. So if you haven't grabbed something to write on, now is a good time to do that. But we're going to think through a couple questions. Then I'm going to give you 3 minutes to think about it. So, what is a friendship that felt especially good or meaningful to you? What values were present in that relationship? And when you think about making new friends, what values are important to you to see in them? For me, it's, I'd want friends that are loyal because loyalty is really important to me. I want friends who are adventurous because I want people to like go out and try new things with. When you think about your values, when you think about past friendships, let's just spend 3 minutes thinking about it. I am going to play a little music to help you think, and then we'll get back here in 3 minutes. All right, so that brings us to the end of our first 3 minutes. Would love to have you share in the chat any values that you came up with. Would love to know kind of what you reflected on and felt like was important to you. If you want to go ahead and share one or two, give people a couple seconds. Ambition, positivity, and adventure, says Vishesh. Love that. Authenticity, loyalty, open, and kindness. Make sure you have your message sent to everyone so we can all see. I see some of them coming into hosts and panelists. Appreciative of their significant other. That's cool, Carolina. Loyalty, honesty, creativity. Love it. These are such awesome values. Cool. All right, we're gonna keep moving. Feel free to keep sending them in the chat. Would love to continue to see them. So, in the years after you've graduated, which again, maybe that's in 2 weeks if you're Sage, maybe that's 10 years ago, as you kind of think about where you're finding yourself, I outlined three options. There could be a million other places that you're finding yourself, but it could be that you are at home. You're back home with your parents. For me, like I said, I graduated in 2020, so I definitely went back home with my parents. And so who's kind of like around you at that point? Who is like in your immediate network? It could be your high school friends, people that you knew growing up, could be family friends, people that your family knows, that you were could be in contact with. Maybe it's just your siblings. Your siblings are also at home. It's your family, your parents, cousins. Maybe you're still in Boston after graduating, and so maybe you can stay in touch with friends who stayed in the city. Maybe it's, friends of friends. Your immediate friends stayed in the city, but maybe they know people who have, and so that could be like a potential point of contact. Or maybe you're in a brand new city. I moved to New York after the pandemic, and so people who I connected with were, friends of friends. I had a friend who knew someone who had moved to New York, and I had two friends who had also moved to New York. And so those were kind of my initial jumping off points for friendships. Wherever you find yourself, who kind of like is in your immediate network around you? Um, as you think about that, we can then think about who is on in our social network. Who are your close friends, your acquaintances, even if there's people who are kind of like in wherever you find yourself, but you're not presently friends with them, they could still count as being in your, general social network. So we're going to take another 3 minutes. These activities are pretty back to back. We'll have a little break before the next one, but we're gonna map our current social network. So you can think about three concentric circles, or if you're on your phone, just bullet it out. Who are the close friends that are nearby you? Who are the friends? And then who are the acquaintances or maybe friends of friends? For also like close friends, that could be who are the close family members or who you can kind of like label these however you want, but like who is near you that you would say you already have a close relationship with? Who do you have maybe like a second degree relationship with? And then who else is like around you that you know about? All right, we're gonna take 3 minutes to do that, and then we're gonna move on. that is the end of this time. I just want to say I saw ML's question in the chat about what if you're starting from square one. Totally appreciate that. The rest of this presentation, I'm hoping, will be super helpful for you, whether you had an easy time with this activity or whether it was a little bit harder. Cool. Okay, so now that we know who kind of like is around us, let's like pause and reflect on what we've done so far. So we've thought about what values are important to us. We've mapped out, as we're thinking about making new friendships, what kind of values do we want to look for? How can we be discerning about the kind of people that we want to build these friendships with? And then we thought about who's currently in our network. Who do I know that could be a point of contact? If you like had a super easy time with that circle and filled in a bunch of people, or maybe you even need more time. Um, that could already be a great starting place for you. If you're like, great, I actually have a couple friends here. I know some friends and friends, like maybe I can reach out to them. That can be your first starting point for creating this community after college. Um, I think the next big piece here is how do we want to spend our time? So we know kind of who we're looking for. We know some people that are maybe around us. We're going to talk about how to find some new people, but how do you actually want to spend your time? After you graduate, there's like already a million things vying for your attention, right? You already probably need to go to work. Bummer if you don't like it, great if you do. But that is probably already 40, give or take, hours of your week. And so how you want to think about spending your time outside of work is really important. Do you want to like use your time outside of work just to relax? What's relaxing to you? That kind of thing. Maybe you're engaged already in a couple organizations, or maybe you have something that you want to find. We're going to talk about that. But in college, your time was mapped completely different. You had maybe you had like a job, but you were also like in classes and you're doing homework and you're doing clubs. And I found, at least for me, the day was a lot more fluid. Whereas now I basically go to work from 9 to 5. And then when I finish my day, I kind of see how much energy I have. And that's, where I then go and kind of fill in the gaps with friends and with other activities. So ultimately, I think knowing where you want to spend your time helps you find people who want to do the same. I've heard like a, relationship trope, which is like if you want to date someone who like always buys fresh, vegetables, maybe you should go hang out at like a farmer's market. Or if you want to meet someone who's really sporty, maybe you should go hang out at a gym. I think the same rule applies to friends. If you want to meet someone who also loves crocheting, you probably should find a place where people are crocheting. Or if you want to also meet people who love reading, maybe you should go join a book club. And so we're going to talk about how to go and do that. Um, so there's a lot of different ways that you could spend your time. For me these days, it's running. I like cooking. I am trying to get back into reading. I finally just got a library card after living in New York for 4 years. I volunteer sometimes. How do you spend your time? Here are some, thought starters, but we're just going to spend a couple minutes thinking, what are some activities that you like? Maybe you've never explored them. Maybe you have. Maybe it was something that you did as a club in college. Maybe, it's adjacent to your major. Whatever it might look like as you think about where you want to spend your time now, we're going to spend like 3 minutes thinking about that. So take the time and then we'll revisit in 3 minutes. Alrighty, that is the end of our 3 minutes. Would love for you to share in the chat what you came up with. Kevin already said that he grew up playing tennis and has started enjoying playing pickleball. Love that. What else do people come up with? Would love to see. I'll give us a second. Jane says cooking, running, crafting. I love that. Would love to know more about your crafting. What kind of crafting are you getting up to? I feel like everyone in my life is knitting right now. Nikki says thrifting, pottery, movies, sports games. I love that. Awesome. Well, feel free to continue to throw them in the chat. We'd love to see it. And I'll also just say, as we kind of are in the second half of our presentation, feel free to put anything in the Q&A if you have questions. We'd love to be able to answer them at the end of the presentation. Okay, nice. Julia said yoga, hiking, drinking tea, tender, listening to music, drawing, photography. Awesome. These are so great. I hope that you came up with something that felt exciting to you. Um, all right. So, what do we now know? We talked about our values, we talked about who's already on our network, and we talked about how we enjoy spending our time. I think at the end of the day, like you got to be spending your time doing things that make you happy. Ideally, we'll find some people to do it along with you, but knowing that you have something to look forward to at the end of the day or on the weekend, or maybe throughout the day, depending on what your work schedule looks like, I think is what makes life really exciting. All right, so we have figured out the overlap of our values and interests, and we figured out the overlap of those in our social network. In the middle of the things that we care about and those that we know is our community. We talked at the beginning about creating community after college. In between these things is our community. And I think the real question comes to what DL was asking earlier is how do we increase the number of people in those in our social network side? So that we have more people to hang out with and do the things that we like to do. Maybe you're like, okay, I do know several people that live in my city, but none of them love drinking tea. They're all coffee people. Okay, how do we find more people that like drinking tea with you? That's what we're going to talk about now. So, this is like a very practical guide for like how I would do this if I was living in Boston. So I would recommend finding somewhere to pursue your activity. I did a very quick search for some of these words, and then I just did those words plus club and the word Boston. And I immediately found a queer art journaling club, a running club, a girls who walk club, and a craft club just by doing one quick search. So, would recommend starting by literally just Googling something that you like and the word club and then whatever city you find yourself in. And I guarantee you something will pop up. If nothing on the first interest that you had, let's try a second interest, a third interest. I'm positive that you will find something. So that's your first step is we're just going to Google it. If you're like, okay, Sarah, I Googled it. I'm not finding anything immediately. What do I do? So you have some next options. There's a lot of great places to find out about events. Eventbrite. I think we've all probably used it in college. I know BU's used it a lot, but there's a ton of events happening all the time. There's also an app called Geneva, which is where we've hosted the Holdette community. And on there, you can find a bunch of different communities for people who are interested in different things. Facebook. People are still using Facebook, and there's a million Facebook groups. If you Google like meeting people, or not Google, but go search on Facebook, like meeting people in Boston, meeting people in New York. There are like a ton of Facebook groups for people who are already doing this. Meetup.com. People are still posting there, looking for people to hang out with, setting up groups. Some of them are like dinner parties or gardening clubs that I see and stuff like that. We then have like our second layer of like where you might find some people to pursue your activity. Friends of friends. We're going to talk about like inviting people to events, but friends of friends are a really great way to start finding people who have those common interests with you. If you have a faith that you're practicing, finding like a place to practice that, whether that's a church or a synagogue or a temple or kind of whatever have you. I belong to a church here in New York, and I met a lot of my friends through there, through the kind of like smaller group activities that they host. Maybe you live in a building that has a lot of people. This is like really specific, but I just learned about a building in New York City where they're like paying their residents to host events. So people are hungry for community. But introduce yourself to your neighbors. A couple weekends ago, my first floor neighbors invited me to a party outside in their backyard, and that was so nice. And now I know my first floor neighbors. There's also a lot of local event boards. One of my favorite things to do is to look at places that I've like enjoyed visiting and then seeing if they host events. So there's a well-known bookstore here in New York called The Strand, and they host events basically every single day with authors. So I went to a cool event there. That's a great place to meet people who already have something in common with you because you both ideally like reading and maybe you both like the book that you're hearing about. So here are just like some initial ideas, but I would really recommend starting with the like word club, Google search and seeing what you find. After you find an event that you like, you need to show up. Why is this such an obvious step maybe, and why is she even including it? It's so easy to like see things that are happening and be like, I'm gonna go to that one day. We don't make friends from our home unless you're making like virtual friends, but I think specifically here we're talking about in-person friends, building your network around you. You have to show up. Like I said, it takes 30 hours to build a good friendship with someone. Most of these events, they're giving you your first free hour. You just got to show up and meet someone. My recommendation, my little goal for you, aim to exchange a phone number with one person. What might you do with that person? You might invite them to a hangout one-on-one. If you clicked, they feel like a normal, safe person. You might say, hey, I really enjoyed meeting you. Would you want to grab coffee, lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever, sometime? You can invite them to hang out one-on-one. You can invite them to a group hang. So you might say, like, hey, I have some other friends. You can never have too many. Some friends and I are like grabbing drinks next weekend. Would you want to come? This is such a great way to bring someone into the fold of something that you're already doing. We're going to talk a little bit later about how to like host your own activity, but thinking about how you can invite your new friends into something that you're already doing is such a great way to expand your circle. You could also invite them to an activity that's like not as high pressure as like a coffee, lunch, dinner situation. And you can be like, hey, maybe you can weave a movie into natural conversation. I've been meaning to go see that movie. Would you want to go on Sunday? Find something that you could do together. Maybe it's also like, oh, you met someone at a run club. I was thinking about doing like going for a run and grabbing a bagel on Saturday. Would you want to do that together? Giving them a concrete thing for you guys to do together is also a really great way to kind of take it from like, okay, great, we texted, and now what do we do? I think what's like not helpful is like you go to an event and you're like, yeah, like we should hang out sometime, and you exchange numbers and nobody texts, or putting the pressure on yourself to now develop this like robust texting relationship with someone. Find something concrete that you can do go in public, like go find a public activity for you guys to do as like a next step. For me, one of my favorite things is like to get bubble tea and go for a walk with someone. There's like a concrete thing for us to do, and we can just like chat. That can also go on for as long as you want. You can do an easy out of like, oh, I have like plans at 4:30, but I would love to go for a walk at like 3:30. Give yourself like an hour. You can like make it super low pressure, both for you and for the other person involved. And then once you've gotten to this one activity and you have exchanged phone numbers with one person, it's not that hard. We can do it. Then you got to go back either to that same event or to another one. So my, you know, like homework for this session is to mark on your calendar after you go to a session, find something that you want to go do. Mark on the calendar the next time you're going to attend either that same event or one put on by the same organization. I was on a run this morning and saw one of my friends like running with other people, and I texted him and I was like, "Was that you at the park this morning?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm in this like running group. You should come." Okay. Is it helpful if I show up one time? Maybe for my like running stamina. But if I want to meet other people in that running group, you can't just show up one time. Friendship comes through repetition. It comes from putting in the time to get to those 30 hours. And so if you're going to go once, you really got to go twice. It's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, I'll try anything twice. When you're mostly talking about food. But I think that applies to this situation too. Now, let's say you're going, you're like, Sarah, I went. I hated it. Okay, don't go back. But you got to find another activity put on by another organization. Um, yes, I saw in the chat, Kevin says consistency is key. I totally agree. None of your good friends are someone you've only hung out with one time. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, great. So you have an activity. You're gonna go. It's gonna be great. So now what do we know? We know what values are important to us. We know who is currently in our network. We know how we enjoy spending our time, and we know how to find other people that enjoy the same activities. So if you're back to the like, who do I currently know? And I'm like, no one. Okay, great. You got to go find some club or activity or like book event to go to. I think one thing that is also really important is when you're at those events, saying, if you might be so bold, hey, I'm like looking to expand my network, or like I'm looking to like make new friends, or like, oh, I've just like found myself in the city, or like I've been here for a while, but I've like had trouble connecting with people. I have found that when I've put myself out there to be like, oh, I'm looking for people to meet who all do the same thing, people are more likely to one, be that person who's like, oh, my friends and I are doing this thing, come with, or to be like, oh my gosh, I know someone who might be a really good fit for you to be friends with. So it's kind of like when you like put like a bat signal out and you're like, I'm looking for friends. I find those friends then like come to you a little bit easier. All right. I'm gonna give a quick one-on-one on building your own community. I think this is like really like a 201 from this presentation because I don't think what you need to do first is like reinvent the wheel on community because I guarantee you wherever you are, there are people hosting events around you. Even if I was at home with my parents, I live in Danvers, Massachusetts, 30 minutes north of Boston. I know that their like community center is hosting events. I know that there's like local churches, organizations hosting things every single week. I promise you, wherever you are, there are people gathering and they would love to hang out with you. Even a gym, go to a gym, take a group fitness class, chat with someone after. There's so many possibilities. One of my favorite things is to leave a workout class and be like, oh my God, that was so hard to someone. It doesn't matter who, just someone that looked nice. See where that goes. And then show up next week and talk to them again. That one was easier. That's something you could say the next week. Okay, so building community 101. How can you go about kind of like creating a community around something that you already love to do? Okay, so you're gonna start. That's part you take notes. Okay, so you're gonna start by picking out an activity that you enjoy doing and that you would enjoy doing with others on a regular basis. I say regular basis because, spoiler alert, consistency remains key here as well. So you're going to pick an activity that you like. It could be hosting dinner. For me, I love hosting dinner, which is why I do the Holdette dinners at my apartment. You can host dinner. It could be running. It could be bowling. I have so many friends that are in bowling leagues right now. I don't know what's up with that. It could be baking. It could be karaoke. It could be crafting. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it has to be something that you like and that you'd want to do with someone else. So it can't be something you'd want to do by yourself. It can't be like journaling. If that unless you want to journal with others, which love. But like if you like doing it by yourself, it doesn't count. You need to pick something that you'd want to do with other people. Okay. So once you have your activity picked out, then you are going to and it needs to be low cost and low stakes. My recommendation would be to do it something in public. So I'm not sure like baking and hosting a dinner are actually like the best examples, but ideally it can be done in public. Then you're going to either set it up, this event that you're hosting, on a platform like Partiful, which you have, if you haven't heard of it, is just like a free party hosting platform where you can like set up event details, or you're gonna just send a text. Who are you gonna send the text to? We'll cover in a second. You're gonna set a date and a time in your calendar for this event, and you are going to not move it. How can we expect other people to show up if we're not even showing up to our own event? Okay, so you need to be like, I'm going to host an event at this time, and I'm going to be there, and it's going to be great. You need to invite 2+ people to attend. This is why I say it's kind of a 201 because we're relying on the fact that you know 2 people that you would want to hang out with. But you could start really small. I only say 2 because just one person is just like a one-on-one hang. But if you have 2, then it's the 3 of you, and now we have a budding community. But start small. It does not have to be elaborate. And then you are going to host the same activity a second time. Okay. So the same as you have to go to that other event thing twice, you also have to host this exact same event twice. So if you're like, great, loved bowling, now you're going to be like, great, next month, let's go bowling again. But this time you're going to have people bring a friend. Okay. We don't need to keep like uh growing your numbers one by one. We can exponentially grow when other people also bring a friend. So you're like, great, I hosted my bowling party or just whatever, we just went bowling with like Sally and like John. And now Sally's gonna invite a friend and John's gonna invite a friend. And oh my gosh, now there's 5 people at our bowling event. That's literally crazy. Maybe you made another friend, so now there's 6. It just doubled in size. I've been out of computer science for too long. It doubled in size. That's amazing. Now you have a community, and now you're a community builder. It's actually that easy. I feel like some people are like, I'm gonna start a community, and they're like, I need like a group chat, and I need like all these things. You don't. You just need to do it, and you need to invite two people, and that's it. And now you're a community builder. Um, I think we're at the end of my presentation. Oh, just kidding. We have one more slide and one more activity. Okay, we're gonna round this out. We're gonna end perfectly on time. What's one activity that you can host? We're going to spend 3 minutes. You're going to brainstorm and bonus points to anyone who can pick a date and time today for the thing that they're going to host. And then you're going to share it in the chat. Spoiler alert. Here's some ideas. It could be a dinner party. It could be drawing in the park. Someone the other day was telling me about how they just did figure drawing in the park. It could be clay magnet making. This is just a personal party I wanted to host. It could be a taco tour. This is something I'm hosting in 2 weeks. I'm literally just getting people together and we're just going to 4 different taco spots. That's it. But now it's a taco tour because I've called it one. It could be just a walk around the city. It could be a group run. It could be we're all gonna get together every week and we're gonna watch The Bachelor. You could also get together and like play video games, but in person, not virtually. Okay, this is your final 3 minute activity. Taking a run with it. I can't wait to hear what you come up with. Alrighty. Would love to know in the chat what you came up with. Oh my gosh, okay, we have so many. Um, Zuri says food tourism, city walk, nature preserve, enjoying flowers, ocean beach. Nature is the best gift. I love that. And I love that you want to invite people to hang out with you in nature. Jane says, I want to host you all for drinks and dinner. Vishesh says, motorbike group ride on suburban trails. These are all such good activities. Okay, would love to know what else anyone else came up with. Anyone set a date and time? No pressure, but would love to know. I gave you like 2 minutes and 45 seconds, so no pressure. As people are hopefully sharing in the chat, that is really all I got. So we're gonna do a little Q&A. I already have a couple questions in here, so I can answer those. And if anyone else wants to share what their activity is going to be in the chat, that would be awesome. All right, so let's see. Dylan says, how do you become friends with a person if they already have friends and a friend group? Okay, here's what I'll say, Dylan. When I moved to New York, I remember meeting people for the first time in various contexts, and I'd hear them say in conversation, something, my best friend. And I was like, oh my God, their best friend spot is already taken. What's even the point of trying to become friends with someone? And I think, I don't know if you feel that way, but for me, I feel like I needed to like dispel the myth that like there's a limit on the number of friends that people can have and kind of like create yeah, like just like build my own confidence and like it's like it would be fun to be friends with me. I assume this person like it'd be fun to be friends with them. We don't have like an upper bound on the friends that we can have. And so my recommendation would be one, like, can you get invited to a group hang that they're already doing? Or can you just like invite that person to something that you're doing and maybe they'll eventually want to invite their own friends along to it. Um, Either way, I think that's great. You also, if you're like, oh, I feel like maybe that's not the friend group for me, go back to like, how can I find other events that I have interest in, and maybe like pursue that as a first path forward. And then once you're starting to build friends there, maybe you can invite this other friend and their friend group along with you. All right. Axel says, I really enjoy hosting people over for drinks and snacks, but I find it hard to take the first step of inviting people as I still don't have at least one close friend. How would you suggest to build that confidence to make a little hangout or to start building it? Again, I think it's like how can you maybe see like other people do this well and then use that as a model for yourself? So like are there especially on meetup.com, there's a lot of people that are hosting events just like you're describing. Maybe go see someone how someone else does it and then use that as a model for how you want to do it. I also don't think the people that need to come over like that are coming over need to be close friends, especially if you have like an activity that you're going to do that doesn't force you to like make super meaningful conversation. So it could be like you want to have people over for drinks and snacks and we're all going to play a board game. You know, you don't have to be like best friends with someone to like facilitate that conversation because the main conversation would be about the game. So maybe find something else to kind of like diffuse the tension and not force you to like have to do this whole big hosting thing. I hope that helps. AL says, I think I would be way too anxious to text someone out of nowhere or invite someone somewhere or even accept an invite somewhere. This is why I'm struggling and why I have no friends right now. What do I do? So true. If you're not quite ready to do the like one-on-one texting or inviting or anything like that, my recommendation would be to just find some place where you don't need to do that. Whether that's like, you know, one of those clubs that we were talking about or like maybe you can just like go to an environment where like you're not even like at the conversation point yet, whether that's like a workout class or like movies or like other kinds of things where like talking isn't the main or like places where like other people are giving talks, so like book events, that kind of thing. Just like starting to put yourself in environments where you might meet people, leave yourself open to that. And then like see how it develops naturally. I think you can also get a lot of the joy of connecting with people, even if you're not the one like initiating. So like if you're at an event and people are like around you and you're enjoying the thing together, I think that also can be like a good way to kind of start to like break down your own walls. Dylan says, what do you do if you invite someone but always feel like they don't want to get to know you? That is so kind of you to invite them, but I feel like we need to go find some other friends, Dylan. And I feel like we got some good tips here on how to go and do that. But I think like ultimately you can't force someone to be friends with you. I feel like one of the hardest things that we like didn't really talk about in this presentation is like growing apart from people that like you maybe were friends with in college. For me, I had like a couple people in college who like we obviously connected with then, but I felt like maybe we're just like not really in the same place in our life now. And so, yeah, kind of like letting people go if they're not serving you, I think is like probably the info there. I love this. People becoming friends in the chat. Okay. Jane says, how to manage feelings of shame and anxiety about starting from square one. Totally valid. Totally hear that, Jane. I think like a lot more people than you would probably realize are starting from square one. I mean, we already had a ton of people join this chat. We had even more people register that I know are going to watch the recording. Like, starting from square one is like literally where everybody is, especially I think when a lot of people like move to a new city or like, maybe we're at a job and new people at their job, but now have left that job and don't know people. I think like it's probably a myth that we like all graduated and have found all of our friends and like we're set for the rest of our life. I think about like I had friends in middle school, not friends with them anymore, friends in high school, college, you have all these like starting points again, and you can kind of create those for yourself by doing some of these things that we talked about. Um, I had another thought about making friends, and I don't know what it is. Yeah, I think just like a lot more people are in that boat than you would probably realize. And instead of like letting it get you down, I would think of it like as an opportunity. Like I said, oh, I remember what I was saying. When I first moved to New York City, I knew like literally one person, and or maybe I had like two friends from college. And I remember like sitting down and like with I was feeling like so lonely, like in my first couple weeks here. And I remember sitting down with a notebook and like probably my laptop and like on Instagram or LinkedIn or something and being like, okay, who's everyone that I like remotely could know here? Or like who are some friends of friends that I might be able to connect with? And that's literally where I started because I was like starting from square one again. So I don't know kind of like what that looks like for you, but yeah, a lot of people are like going through that at all phases of life, and that's super real. Vishesh says, how do we initiate conversation to break the ice with complete strangers? How do we not make it awkward? Love that. If you, okay, I'll do like two. One, if like you're hosting and maybe you don't know people that well, and then if you're like just kind of out in public. If you're out in public, I would just like initiate the conversation with something that's like directly in front of you. So like I said, for the workout class, I'd love to be like, that was a hard class. Or like if you're at like I'm just gonna keep using running club as an example, even though literally never in my life have I been to a run club. But I might be like, oh, how long have you been running? Or like you could apply that to anything. If you're at like a pottery class, how long have you been going here? Go from there. Oh, like when did you get into like this activity? Like what excites you about it? Or like where are you like pursuing it? Or like is this related to something you studied in college? Like I would just like focus your questions on the activity literally in front of you, and use that to kind of guide your conversation. Then you can branch into like how long have you lived in this city? Where did you go to school? What did you study? I think like factual questions are a lot easier than like really broad questions, and then hopefully somewhere along the way you find something that you connect on. I think if you're hosting people and you're like, how do I facilitate conversation? I really like conversation question card decks. Selfishly, a plug. Holdette did make one, so you can find that on our website, holdette.com. But there's a lot of conversation decks that are range from like more kind of like personal questions to ones that are more just like fun game questions, and that's a fun way to connect with people as well. All right, we have time. Let's keep going. Azima says, my close friends from high school will be in different states, so it will definitely be an adjustment because we used to spend every summer together when I was in college. Sweet. I'm hoping to make friends at my new job, otherwise, super nervous about making friends through the avenues you mentioned. How would you recommend pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone in this way? Friendships came a lot easier in college, like you mentioned. That's totally fair. I think like start small and pick something that like uh maybe like is already something that you love. And then okay, yeah, I was like go back a second time, but like you don't have to go back a second time immediately. If you're like okay, I'm gonna hype myself up for this one time, go the one time. And if you're like, okay, that was a lot, I need to like not do anything for a little while, then that's totally fine. I also think kind of to I think it was Jane's question earlier, like a lot of people who are going to events like the ones I've talked about are also there because they could be doing their activities on their own, but they've chosen to do them with other people. So I think that people who are like out connecting with people in this way, like do want to meet other people. And I hope that knowing that like other people are in the same boat as you feels kind of comforting in that way. Cool. I think that's all the time we have, Tracy. Is it?
It is, but one more question came into the chat
Oh,
if you
yes,
want to go ahead.
I do. Let me see. Oh, in the chat or in the
In the chat, in the chat.
oh, from Sage.
Mhm.
Any tips on making friends as a couple? I never want someone to feel like a third wheel, but we usually meet people together and both want to build a relationship with them. Um, this is really cute. I'm trying to think about how me and my partner have made friends. We've probably made most of our friends through church, but as a couple. But I think the easiest way to do this is probably like to think about like independent people that are in your life who might have a significant other now, and then invite them on like a double date. We love going on double dates, especially double dates where there's an activity. Bowling. That's the main one that we do. But we've also done like putt-putt, stuff like that. So I think I think when you meet someone and you've gone through those questions of like, how long have you been doing this? Like, what do you enjoy doing? Blah, blah, blah. You can also be like, tell me about yourself, and hope that that person kind of like also tells you about maybe their significant other. And then all four of you guys could hang out. That's probably how I do it.
Amazing. Well, Sarah, on behalf of the BU Young Alumni Council and the BU Alumni Association, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise by guiding us through the process of intentionally creating community in our lives. I also just want to thank everyone who joined us this evening and who will be watching this recording in the future. A recording of this webinar will be available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni and Friends website, again, found at bu.edu/alumni, along with a copy of today's slides for your review. We hope you had a great evening wherever you might be, and thank you all again so much for joining us. And again, another thank you to Sarah for sharing such amazing tips on how to make friends and build a community.
Yeah, this is so fun. Thank you so much for having me, Tracy. Thank you guys so much for joining. You're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to stay in touch. And yeah, really love that we're, keeping the BU community strong.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.